It's not that we were focused on being profitable or worried about money, and we were actually losing money. When we sold to Microsoft, we were losing money too, but we were growing.
So why did you sell Hotmail?
In those days, the choice was either sell Hotmail to Microsoft or have Microsoft as a competitor. We are still growing in a zero-sum game kind of mentality, very slowly, cautiously. Oh, don't make a mistake, don't lose any money. Lose all the money. Today, you should not be limited by capital, and we are always thinking capital is the limiting factor. Capital is never the limiting factor.
Any companies that you would want to go back and, maybe back up now?
I put 200K in that. It would be worth probably like 40 billion today,
One thing that you think that founders often make a mistake?
Mistakes that founders make is...
Imagine a visionary engineer, someone who would change the way the world communicates forever. Meet Sabeer Bhatia. He put India on the map by selling Hotmail to Microsoft in 1997 for $400 million US. Today, he continues to inspire and innovate with his latest venture, Showreel. Hello, Sabeer.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you here today with us. Considering your prolific entrepreneurial journey so far, there are obviously a lot of questions that we have to ask you. But want to just start with the most important question. What's your email?
Sabeer@hotmail.com.
Wonderful. I also want to then go back to, the early days of your life when you were still a student. You are an army kid.
I am, yes.
And, the army life comes with a lot of travel. You have to change bases, go to different schools. I want to know, how did this constant movement very early in your life shape you to become the entrepreneur that you were to become later in your life?
I think it helped me adjust in new environments, make new friends, and adapt to new situations, new places. And it also eliminated the fear within me of, facing the unknown, of being in an unfamiliar place.
The fact about moving to a new place and facing the unknown. One major transition for you would have been when you moved from India to the US to study back in the day. What was that transition like? Because it was also the time when there was no email, there was no communication, it was still early. How was that, and how did you cope up with it? What were some of the learnings during that time?
Our first 3 months were very difficult because obviously I was missing home, missing family. It was an unfamiliar place. I had to get used to the American accent, and so first 3 months were very difficult. But then I found a girlfriend, and everything was fine from then on.
So one important transition for you would have been the transition from studying here in India to moving to the US. That was early, before email, before communication in the way that we know it. How was that experience for you, the transition?
It was very difficult because, as you rightly pointed out, I could only call my parents once a month because it was very expensive to call parents. It used to cost us $5 a minute in those days. And of course, I missed family, home, friends, familiarity. And I used to write letters back home, to make up for the difference. And so it was difficult adjusting in the beginning.
Right. And in terms of just the academics, because was it a different way of studying for you? Because you've also always spoken about knowledge-based learning versus inquiry-based learning. Did you experience a new way of learning because you were traveling and you were in a new place? And also, what did you learn from just the cultural aspect of being in a new place?
Learning was very different. In India, we are spoon-fed. Our professors, teachers, I don't know, they want to hold our hand, or they just, make it very easy for us. And all the exams, tests are kind of variations of problems that you find at the back of a chapter. And Caltech was very different. I had to start running from day one. Over here, I could pretty much go through the entire semester and study only in the last month or so, and I would easily pass the exams. But not so at Caltech. The tests were very difficult because they really tested your true understanding of the subject.
Mm-hmm.
And that I found was very different from the way I had been used to learning over here.
Got it. And before we get into, your entrepreneurial journey, because I have a lot of questions from, that part of your life. But before we do that, what's your fondest memory associated with the following institutions? So, BITS Pilani.
BITS Pilani was the campus ragging, it was fun. Believe it or not, it wasn't like any kind of physical ragging, but it was a way to get to know your seniors.
What about Caltech?
Caltech, I have very fond memories. It was the first place that I went to in the United States. I also later on went on to join the board of Caltech for 5 years. It's a very small university, but really pretty, right in one of the suburbs of LA called Pasadena. Just a beautiful part of, you could see mountains from there. The resources at Caltech are just unbelievable, like 20 tennis courts, swimming pool, badminton facilities, basketball. I was on the Caltech golf team, so I love that. I just love being at Caltech.
And Stanford?
Stanford is very close to where I live right now. So the most beautiful part of Stanford is the Palm Drive, when you're actually approaching Stanford and you see the hills in the background. And now when you go to Stanford, the place where I used to stay as a graduate student, they have built new dorms, and the dorms are nothing short of a 5-star hotel. I mean, full with gyms, saunas, spas. Unbelievable. It's got unbelievable resources.
Got it. Now moving on to the next segment, which is more about your entrepreneurial journey so far. Let's go to your early days at Hotmail. Was that chaotic? Was a lot happening the first 1 month? If you could just help us understand what was that like? Also, what was the team like? How who were your first set of hires?
So we had a very small team, and everyone on the team was personally known to someone. Like my co-founder and partner, Jack Smith. His best friend, Rich, was one of our first hires. His dad joined us. Then we had a couple of other people.
How did you meet your co-founder?
Both of us worked at Apple Computer, and then both of us worked at Firepower Systems, a startup that both of us joined. So we were working together, when we started Hotmail.
Right.
And the first month was, once we were done with the coding and announced the product, which was on the 4th of July, 1996, every one of us had pagers, and every day and every hour we would get an update of how many new customers had signed up. So we were tracking the growth from the very early stages, and that kept the entire company together, when we were seeing our usage just grow exponentially.
I'm curious that if you had to set the whole thing up again today, would you hire differently in terms of the roles that you put together and the way that you set up the team?
No, absolutely not. I mean, it was a successful outcome, so I would hire absolutely the same people again. But I've been part of a number of ventures, and the ones that have not succeeded have usually had people issues. And so that's why working together as a team so that you're subconsciously on the same plane is very important.
Right.
It's more important than we think, especially for a startup, because a startup requires everyone to pull not just their weight, but the weight of 10 people. I mean, we pulled off all of Hotmail with just 14 people, and then of course we hired folks in the customer service and marketing, sales, those roles. But the core engineering team is very important to have a very cohesive group.
Right. Also, interestingly, sometimes people say that the city that you're in, the culture of the city kind of rubs off on you a little bit. So do you think Silicon Valley and being there had a role to play in the success of Hotmail as well?
Of course, because Silicon Valley is a place where people try out crazy ideas, and you can find talent with deep technical expertise. I mean, if you're building like a company like a Facebook or a Google or a Stripe or an Uber, I mean, you need deep tech because you need to scale massively. It's not just the business idea, but it's even the technology behind it. When we were building Hotmail, for example, there were no Amazon Web Services equivalent. We had to, build our own data center, if you will, or co-locate our physical servers. And we had no idea how many email accounts one Sun workstation, could handle. So, that kind of technical expertise. And of course, over the time, data centers have evolved. They're now becoming AI centers. But to have knowledge of how they work is what is available in Silicon Valley. And so all kind of deep tech ideas come from there.
Was there a moment in that early Hotmail journey where, maybe you woke up and everything had crashed because there was just too much traffic? Was that overnight kind of like hockey stick? Did you experience that in some way?
We lost a couple of days of outage or a few hours of outage. In one case, we even lost people's email. I mean, that was gut-wrenching. But yeah, when you're a startup, you experiment, you try things. It's not perfect, but that's part of the journey. But all along the way, it's not that we were focused on being profitable or worried about money. We were actually losing money. When we sold to Microsoft, we were losing money too, but we were growing. And we had 10 million subscribers.
What was the main driver, for you personally and the team, the motivation behind?
The thing is, the main driver was, one is we were solving a real fundamental problem. And two, we were young and it was so cool to do something that you believed in, that was just growing. I absolutely love that experience and have, pined to kind of recreate that time and that experience when, somebody trusted in us. And I thought America was the greatest country in the world when somebody gave us our first check of $300,000, believed in the idea. And, the outcome was also very quick, relatively speaking. It's not that we had to wait for 10, 20 years to get an exit. And from start to finish was 19 months.
Yeah.
And so, that kind of meteoric rise and exit doesn't happen every day. It's like once in a lifetime kind of story.
It is.
But those are the stories that make Silicon Valley, and people yearn to be part of these kind of journeys.
In fact, more on Hotmail actually. The next question is something that I find very exciting, is that Hotmail is a great name and I think it's very catchy. What were the close number 2s and number 3s when you were deciding on a name for the brand?
We had all kinds of names like Hypermail, Blazemail. We had, I think, Super Fast Mail, Firemail, Speedmail, all kinds of names. But the reason we chose Hotmail was HTML email. It was a short form for HTML email. HTML was, the technology that was used to deliver the last bit to the web browser. Right? And that's how it was called Hotmail.
Very clever. Where do you see emails now evolve over the next 5 years? Because, you have WhatsApp, you have Slack, and there are so many different options in terms of technology that, people sometimes use also. But what do you think will happen to email?
Every 5 years, people predict the demise of email, but email has just continued to grow and grow and grow and become the medium of choice for business to consumer communication. Maybe in India it's WhatsApp, but in the US, the phone number or text messaging is not how businesses like your local utility or your phone company or your travel company and your tickets, everything comes over email, So marketing, kind of messages from all kinds, whether it's Macy's or everything happens on email.
It's still the more official way to communicate. Like your email address, you still put it on almost all forms.
Yes, yes.
Interesting. So why did you sell Hotmail?
Well, in those days, the choice was either sell Hotmail to Microsoft or have Microsoft as a competitor to us, and price was also right. So,
how did you convince him for that $400 million deal at that time? It was like big money.
It was a negotiation, and I think we held our ground, and there was a little back and forth that went on, but eventually. I think that was a fair price. That was the maximum we could get.
How long did the negotiations go?
We started negotiating on October 13th, and we concluded the deal on December 30th, 1997.
Got it. And then once it came through, like, what did you do that day? Like, what was your reaction? How did you celebrate? And then what did you do with that money? Did you invest it into different things? Like just some kind of advice also for,
I was in Hawaii when the deal happened, and I signed the deal paperwork from Hawaii. And then from, I went a little crazy, not too crazy, but being young. And so I bought a few cars. I bought a nice apartment, which I still have. I've sold most of my cars because I have no use for them anymore. It was kind of, and I've put a lot of the money in some, startups and some other ideas. And it's been, it's been a good experience. And
what have been your top, 2 investments maybe?
Well, the best investment still continued to be Microsoft stock. And then I diversified into Apple, which did very well as well, And then I put money in, just regular, nothing out of the ordinary. Just bought a home for myself and kids. So I moved from San Francisco to suburbia. But I'm enjoying suburban life as well.
Got it. Any advice for young investors who are just starting out that journey on investing their money?
No, I think it's what drives you, and what do you want to live for? What excites you? One is the just financial bit, and actually the best way is to just let financial experts handle that. We try to be financial experts, we are not. I miss the heady days of Hotmail, and I want to, find the next big thing, which is not a business. I'm terrible at business. I'm terrible at counting, nickeling and diming and cost of this thing and EBITDA. I'm terrible. But ideas that can change the world, that are fundamental technologies that come from instinct, that the world has never seen before. That's what drives me, really, Yeah.
It'll be actually very interesting for you to help us, understand what do you think are the biggest trends in technology in the years to come. So, for example, 2022 was a lot about fintech, 23 was Web 3.0, 24 was all about AI in conversations. What do you think the next 3 years are going to be about? So, 2025.
AI will continue to wow us and solve some real problems. That revolution is real.
26.
I think we will also have a revolution in augmented reality and virtual reality areas. I think the whole world has been circling in that space for a while now, and I think something in that space will emerge that will completely changed the way we consume information. Fintech is good, but I don't see any, dramatic changes other than use of AI and machine learning in fintech, where a lot of the decisions that were driven by humans are now automated, but it's like, people to people payments or UPI it's good. It's not rocket science though, and I think it's overhyped in some sense. But what is happening at the back end, where loan applications, analyzing big data at the back end, where money movements are, predicting what the next big stock is going to be, if NVIDIA, and those are the kind of things that I think. So the application, once again, of AI in fintech is the big story.
Right. On the topic of AI, how all countries are right now rushing to build their own language models as well, so that the power kind of just doesn't sit with a few players which sit in Silicon Valley. Do you think that AI and the advancement of this work will eventually lead to some kind of democratization or decentralization, or do you think it will again be winner takes all and, like a very FANG phenomenon for the AI innovation as well?
So the way it's progressing right now, I think there are 3 or 4, and there won't be too many more. There is obviously ChatGPT and Google's Gemini and anthropomorphic cloud and Copilot, which is also a form of GPT. These are 4, and I don't think there'll be local model. Those, first of all, these are the building blocks of the kind of AI which is used for image generation or language generation or sound manipulation or video. But outside of these 4, and I'm not even sure if all 4 will succeed. All 4 have big war chests right now, but maybe 1 or 2 will drop out of this race. Google won't drop out because Google has, very deep, and ChatGPT won't because ChatGPT is also got Microsoft's backing, and Microsoft uses ChatGPT. So I think if one is going to drop out, it's going to be cloud, if at all, because it's on its own and it's not with the big boys, if you will. Do I see any more large language models? I don't think so. But there will be a lot of companies that will develop on these as bases.
Again, just taking the technology question a little bit further, this is a boom or bust question. I'm going to name certain industries and I want your opinions on whether you think they will boom in the coming years or will go bust. The first one is blockchain.
I don't think it will boom. It will just stay. It will just linger on.
Space tourism.
Bust.
AI.
Oh, super boom.
Remote work technology.
It will continue to evolve and stay. Slow boom in there.
Augmented reality.
Boom.
Green technology.
Boom.
Right. So this is like an interesting question which is about building in different countries. And, I'm going to name certain countries and you have to tell me which business would you build in that country if you were an entrepreneur there. The first one is Dubai. It's not a country, it's a city, but in Dubai.
Probably in the financial tech space, because Dubai is so inclusive. It's got, very favorable finance industry, and probably in the fintech space.
All right. Brazil.
Brazil is like in India, but it's got the massive rainforest, and it's got 80 million people. Probably something to do in the green tech space.
All right.
ethanol, fuel, that kind of stuff.
All right. And China?
China is fantastic at low-cost manufacturing, but now they're getting into robotics, and they've got a lot of data on AI too. I don't know what I would build in China. Well, it's like a enigma to me because only the Chinese understand China. Only the Chinese make WeChat and super apps.
Got it. Ghana?
Something in education, because that's a problem in the whole country where, if we can mass educate the people quickly, I'd build something in education.
All right. The last one is Singapore.
Probably in the fintech space. Singapore is such a Switzerland of Asia. It's got good relationships with every other country in the world.
Got it. Coming back to some of the advice for young entrepreneurs, would you recommend solo entrepreneurship or finding yourself a co-founder when you're starting out?
Co-founder for sure, because two brains are always better than one, but that also requires tremendous amount of trust, in each other.
Right. And one thing that you think that founders often make a mistake and that they should not do?
Mistakes that founders make is sometimes when they get overfunded, they think they've already arrived before they've solved the problem or proven the business, just because VCs are throwing a lot of money at them, hoping, so they think that what is valuation of the company, equating valuation to success, which is really not the case.
Got it. Do you suggest founders build bootstrapped or with fund?
It depends on the business. There are some businesses that can be bootstrapped. There are some businesses that cannot be bootstrapped at all. I'm thinking of one right now which I will lose $5 billion before I do anything. But if it succeeds, it could be worth $1 trillion. So that is, you cannot bootstrap something like that.
Absolutely. So assume that you're advising a startup that's looking to expand and grow their business because they've reached a certain level already. And the choices they have right now for growth in terms of capital is either merging with another company, going public, raising more capital, or getting acquired. The question is, what is that key metric that you will use or the North Star to make such a decision?
Growth. How quickly are they growing? And how big is the market that they're after? We all think of financial markets, which is, you can never win 100% of a financial market because unless you're the only game in town. I look at it differently. I look at it as number of companies market if I'm a SaaS model, or number of people. I think of the financial market last. Whether it's going to make money or not, I don't care. But if I'm growing and the whole world is going to use it, that's what. So for example, if somebody comes and says, I want to build a hospital, and it's going to cost some, I'm like, that's not interesting. Show me a plan that's going to build 200 hospitals at the same time and leveraging the learning of one to replicate for 200 of them. Governments should be thinking like this, not linearly, but parallel, in serial. If you solve one problem, why don't you solve it for all of humanity? And today, as an entrepreneur, I think of scale that way. The problem with, especially I see in India, is we are still growing in a zero-sum game kind of mentality, very slowly, cautiously. Oh, don't make a mistake, don't lose any money, lose all the money, but leave behind something that is, if you know how to build a hospital once, why don't you build 200 if the need is that big? Today you should not be limited by capital. And we are always thinking capital is the limiting factor. Capital is never the limiting factor. The world has more capital than it knows what to do with. It just has to be put to use intelligently.
So the question is that if you go back in time now and you look at, your anti-portfolio, companies that you probably did not invest in back in the day, any companies that you would want to go back and, maybe back up now?
No, listen, the guy who brought the Google deal to a gentleman by the name of Ram Sriram didn't bring it to me. I mean, he was a friend of mine, and he brought me the next deal, which was a music search engine, and I put 200K in that. Had I put 200K in Google, it would be worth probably like 40 billion today, So that's fine. You can't. I do not even once look back and say, I wish I did. I don't have any remorse in life, nothing, because then you're not living life really. The excitement is to let bygones be bygones. It's over. But keep your eyes and ears open for the next big thing, because the excitement is in making it, not reaching the end destination. Once you reach the end destination, it actually is boring. The exciting part is the journey.
All right. So as you know, Tetr is a business school, and students at Tetr are going to be traveling 7 different countries across 4 years, building 7 different businesses. I want to ask you that if you had to add a country to the list, which country would you, want them to experience, a term in, and what business should they make in that country? Sorry.
See, once again, I think Tetr is addressing a different kind of business segment or market where it's about a localized business. Like I said, for me, I like scale. I don't like to build a local business, so I am not the best person to answer that question. I mean, if I want to build something, I want to build something that the whole world will use. And it's not to make money, not to get an exit, not to sell the business. Those things don't interest me one bit. But a technology that could change everything is the kind of scale that excites me. So I'm not the right person to answer that question.
But would you maybe want them to at least spend like a term in Silicon Valley and maybe experience the whole tech
for sure
industry?
I mean, Silicon Valley, but just being there, Silicon Valley is a state of mind. It's not a physical location. It's not a physical place. Silicon Valley is not there because Apple is in my next door or there's Microsoft or no, they're all like closed walls and there's things are happening. It's the ideas in people's heads. And a good idea can come from anywhere.
Got it. Then what would be your one advice, to the batch that would be traveling to these countries and building like small businesses and learning? What would you advise them? Like, how can they make most of the experience that they're going to get at Tetr?
I mean, they obviously will have a great time experiencing the culture of a place. I think they will come out being fantastic marketeers, because when you meet different people and different cultures and you're able to interact and exchange information and do business, culturally, they will be more well-rounded. They'll be great at marketing and sales, but I don't think that has anything to do with like a large-scale technology business.
It was great chatting with you today, Sabeer. Thank you so much for this time and for so candidly sharing, your insights and.
Thank you. Pleasure was mine. Thank you very much.